Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. Today, I'm going to be joined by Janet Taylor, and Janet and I have done a ton of podcasts together, and one of the most popular series that we've done is a series about what first-year teachers need to know. Okay, what do new teachers need to know about curriculum, about classroom management, about professionalism, etc., etc. And that has been, like I said, a really popular series for a long time, and we have an episode today that we think makes a good addendum to that series. Today we're going to talk about a lot of difficult scenarios that you might face in the first year. We've had so many questions from new teachers, first and second year teachers, about the difficult situations they have and how they can deal with those things. And we are going to answer some of those questions today in the podcast. And it covers a lot, like colleagues that are maybe not that pleasant to deal with, to the big asks from administrators, to handling conversation with parents, or shortages of supplies, or lack of budget, and of course behavior issues. And we're going to walk through some scenarios that are happening to teachers and give our best advice on how you can deal with those things. So, like I said, we will share our advice. We'll share some practical strategies. And as we go through all of this, I think it's just a good reminder that we will all face some stressful situations. It's just kind of part of the job as teachers. And we've all been there at some point, but there are ways to handle all of these situations with professionalism and with confidence, and maybe with a little grace and a little humor. So let me bring on Janet, and we'll talk a little bit about all of these different difficult scenarios that you may face during your first year. Janet Taylor is joining me. Janet, how are you?
Hey, Tim, I'm great. How are you doing?
I am great. It's great to have you back on the podcast. I did realize, though, I feel like we need you to introduce yourself because new school year, lots of new teachers listening. And even though you've been on this podcast a million times, not everybody knows who you are.
Sure. I'm Janet Taylor, and I am a high school art teacher in the western suburbs of Chicago. I mostly teach jewelry metalsmithing now, and then usually like one or two off classes in all levels through AP. And I am also the Art of Ed content and community engagement specialist. Yeah.
Podcast listeners probably know you as our assessment expert, like resident assessment expert, and our co-host for What New Teachers Need to Know miniseries, which was great. And I feel like today this podcast kind of fits in with the What New Teachers Need to Know miniseries.
I should add that I did also supervise student teachers at the college level, and that's kind of, like a lot of our impetus for these new teacher series was like, oh my gosh, we need to have support for our new teachers because we love them so much.
Undergrads need a little bit more
Yes.
area or with this topic. So yeah.
Yeah, so today we are going to dig into a mailbag, kind of like a mailbag version of difficult scenarios that you might face in your first year, right? So, of course, in our new teacher series, we've covered all of these overarching topics like professionalism and classroom management and stuff like that. But as Tim and I were talking, we were like, there's also some weird scenarios or difficult things that pop up your first year that you're like, what do I do? How do I handle this?
Yeah, no matter how good your curriculum is, or no matter what kind of handle you have on your professionalism, there's going to be some things that you don't know how to deal with.
Yeah, even 20 years in, you're still like, wait, what? What just happened? So that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah, we have a really good collection of questions from the mailbag. And if you're ready, Janet, let's go ahead and dive right in here.
Let's go.
Okay, our first question comes from Rachel Monroe in Ohio. Rachel says, I'm starting my first job with two other teachers in my department this year, and one veteran colleague keeps sniping that my projects are too messy and not real art. Ooh, ooh.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Well, it gets better. Rachel says she moves my supplies, critiques my cleanup routines, and complains about me in front of students. How do I set boundaries without turning this into a full-on feud? All right, let me just say, good on you for trying to set boundaries and not immediately escalating, because I don't know if I would be able to do that. But
Oh my gosh.
Janet, your thoughts, please.
Okay. So this is a really good question, and it makes me really sad because I mean, we love new teachers. Okay. So I get it. Like as a veteran teacher, it is very hard when you have like your tried and true systems and you have to maybe share or give up some space with a newbie, right? Or it sounds like a couple newbies. Or maybe you're like feeling, I mean, let's be honest, you might feel a little threatened, by a different way of things being done, or, maybe they have cooler lessons or the kids engage with them in a different way or whatever. And so I try to like look on the flip side as a veteran teacher, try to look through their lens. It might be difficult to bring this into my new space.
But we do need to make the point that no matter what big feelings you have, what emotions you have about sharing your space, that's not an excuse to act like this.
Oh my gosh, never. And it is never, ever okay for someone to talk poorly about another teacher in front of students. Like,
Hmm?
absolutely no way. So I don't even know. Okay, deep breath. So it's like just so hard to do, but I think my advice would always be it's a good idea to confront the teacher. And I don't mean like, what are you doing? Why are you talking? Like getting all
Yeah.
angry and up in their face. Like you can't do that, right? Put on your most professional demeanor and try to lead from curiosity and empathy. So that's the part of the empathy that I'm like, you have to like
Yep.
maybe take a break, go home, take a deep breath, maybe jot down some notes of what you might want to talk about or think about, and try to look from their perspective so that you can actually approach it from a place of not attacking, because it sounds like this
Yeah.
teacher there might be a lot of like defensiveness and attack and it will not go well, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not gonna go well. And I would say no matter what, you need to remain professional. And so definitely don't address it in the moment. And
Right.
as you made clear, Jen, do not, when we say confronting it, we're not saying, like you said, get up in their face and be like, why is this a problem? No, you do not escalate this in any way, shape, or form. Like your job is to teach your kids. Your job is not to involve yourself in any drama here. And so you need to address this in a really professional way. And so I like the advice to step away, think about how you're going to talk about these things, get your thoughts in order before you take them to this teacher. But yeah, we definitely do need to set boundaries. So Janet, let me ask you, like, how would you address this?
Okay, so there's a couple ways that you could go about this, right? Depending on your situation. They're all different, right? So one is just addressing the elephant with the teacher, right? The elephant in the room. So you have to find the right time and space to talk about this, right?
This
It's
is
not the
this
way
is
to
not a conversation that
yeah.
happens during a passing period.
Yeah, yeah. It's more like, okay, we're at lunch together, or we happen to have a common prep, or it's after school and maybe that person's standing around working on something or whatever it is. Like you have to find the right time and place, which I know is not always easy, especially if you don't have like the common time. But okay, so addressing it. So you could say something like, I am feeling like you're a little unhappy, or I'm getting the sense that you're unhappy with how I'm teaching or approaching my classroom. Like, first of all, like, check that, right? Like, am I wrong? Did I understand that correctly? Right. And then maybe saying, can you tell me kind of what the situation is? Can you explain to me why you're feeling this way? And leaving it open really allows them to take a moment to check themselves
Mhm.
and respond. Yeah, like think about, wait, was I? Maybe I didn't realize I was putting it out there. Like I am irritable and inside I'm irritable, right? But maybe I didn't realize I was like putting that out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so sometimes like just saying that will stop somebody and they'll say like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I was doing that." Whether they say it out loud to you or not, usually that sits with somebody. And so the next time that you guys have an experience together, it's a little softer, I feel like, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then opening the door. These are like what I call opening the door, right? So, do you have suggestions that worked for you? If the person says, well, yeah, you're like really messy. Okay, well, do you have some suggestions? Because, I'm trying to figure this out. And maybe that person's feeling a little defensive about sharing their space. Maybe offering to collaborate or show them that you're like really open to trying something kind of breaks down those barriers and also kind of creates that mutual respect between you,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
I do know, and I think there are a lot of teachers, I've run into a lot of teachers that just want to be asked. Like
Yeah,
they want to be called on for their expertise or their experience. And it can go a long way because I hear so many veteran teachers talking about, oh, these new kids don't even ask questions. The
right.
teachers don't know what they're doing. And I know it's tough to ask for help. I know it's tough, but it can a lot of times go a long way to just see if, your colleagues have suggestions or have ideas on how to
Yeah,
handle things. And it may be a case where it goes one ear and out the other. You don't have to listen to them. You don't have to implement those things, but just
right,
asking can go a really long way. So
right.
let me ask you though, Jen, like if you want to be more direct, if you want to set those
Mhm.
boundaries, what does that sound like?
I think a great way to do that is to kind of communicate what you're trying to do. You don't have to ask for permission necessarily, but just letting them know. For example, like, hey, just a heads up, I'm trying something new today. I'm really working through it. It may not work. It may take me a bit to kind of work it out, but I need time and space to be able to work through this so that I can learn best for next time. So, kind of just setting the stage and letting them know. So it's not just like a mess, and then you're dealing with that, and then they're coming in and they're frustrated by it. Now, maybe you're not messy. I'm just using that, like
Yeah,
the
no,
perception
that's
of the
good.
person.
Yep.
Right. So I think sometimes just like sharing that with somebody, sometimes it just helps them feel like they're part of it and you're not just kind of flailing on your own, like you said,
Mm.
kind of trying to figure it out and never asking for help, but saying, "Hey, I am aware of this," is a good way to start that. I also think that kind of combining all of these methods, right? Like addressing the elephant in the room, kind of through confrontation and setting the boundaries really works pretty well too. So, because like you said, you don't ever want to have somebody talking about you to students, I think it's important to address that actually happened and that happened, right? So something like this, you could say, you know what? I heard you say some things about me in front of students. I get that you might not be super solid on how I'm teaching, or, it's hard to adjust to me being in the room. I know it's not working that great, right? But I would really ask that you refrain from saying negative things about me in front of students. I'm working really hard. I'm trying my best as a new teacher. And then also approaching it like, I'm sure, do you remember what it was like, right? When
Yeah.
you were a first year teacher, I'm sure you have some stories about that too, and if you have concerns, I really invite you to talk to me directly about that. But when you go and talk about me in front of my students, that really undermines my teaching and makes it really harder for me to keep behaviors at bay and kind of keep engagement up. So kind of talking through that, I think just even explaining that, you're like, hey, I know this is happening, and also I'm not going to be upset about it. And so that person maybe gets off the defensive, but also you're saying like, hey, I'm aware of this and I'm thoughtful and reflective, and I'm not just like willy-nilly moving through space, not caring about how you feel about sharing the space or working through, these lessons.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that, and I feel like I would actually be more direct with something like that, like talking badly about another teacher in front of students, like that is like I would draw the line there, and I would probably say like that's over the line for me. Do not do that again. And that may be a little more combative than what we're saying or what we're addressing, but everybody has those lines that you don't want crossed. And I think that boundaries are important. And if you want this behavior from your colleague to stop, you may need to be more direct and just say like, hey, this particular
Yeah.
behavior needs to stop. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know though, like does that burn bridges? Like does that make things worse if you're being that direct with people?
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the approach. Like, some people are not comfortable with that kind of confrontation themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
I'll
Hard
be
hard
honest, right?
conversations are hard. Like,
Yeah.
those,
Yeah.
those can be
Yeah.
difficult.
Like, I definitely, I mean, I'm giving advice on this, but it would be hard for me to have any of these conversations, right? Like, and to say, like, stop talking about. Now, I've been teaching for a while and I feel pretty comfortable in my space. So maybe as a veteran teacher, I might feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah.
Or Tim, like, you could also start off saying, like, hey, this happened. I'm not super happy about it. If it happens again, I'm going to have issues. Please don't do it anymore. And then, like, if it happens again, then you could be like, absolutely, this is not
Yeah.
okay. And so maybe having that buffer, I guess it depends on, like, your relationship with that person at that time. But yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And okay, so now next step. If you try the softer approach and it doesn't work, what if this behavior continues after you draw that line? Like things continue to spiral, they continue to get worse. Like, how do you remove yourself from that situation? How do you get help? Like, what are next steps if you can't solve the problem?
Yeah. I mean, so the reason why I say go to that person originally is because that is what you would be told by an administrator, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so I would love to just be like, I'm so ticked off at this teacher. I'm so frustrated. Let me just go and complain to my department chair or my
Right.
administrator, right? But talking to that person first and trying to solve that, that's what they're going to tell you anyway. Like, have you talked to them directly? Have you had these conversations? But then I do think after you've had those conversations, it is a good thing to talk to a trusted administrator, right? So, like, let's say your department chair is really close friends with this person and they also act like that, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Maybe
Yeah.
that's not the person to go talk to.
Right.
But, like, the idea is that those people should, even if they're friends with these people, they should understand and want to support you, right? I also think, if things continue to get worse, so you've already talked to somebody, I would, maybe document is a really important thing, like document these instances.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's a big deal because if you have a behavior you've addressed and it will not stop, then yeah, I would begin to document because you might need to escalate it up higher. Like you said, it may need to go to admin and you can't go to your admin and be like, this person makes me feel bad.
three.
If you have the ability to document those things and talk specifically about what's going on, I would begin to do that for sure.
So you still have to work with the person, right? And you still have to share a room. Trying to ignore it and just kind of get in the room, do your job, enjoy your time with students, and get out. And not really take what they have to say or their opinion so personally. Like, if you've tried to resolve a conflict and it still is a problem, and I get that. Like, I'm super sensitive to, like, emotions and vibes.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can just feel the energy, right, when you're walking your room and it's just not good. But, like, when you're with your students, it's amazing, right? And that's the part that you just need to focus on. Years ago, I had this amazing therapist who told me, she said, you really have to focus on it. Whatever's happening is not about you. Right. So, like, that veteran teacher or whatever is having their stuff. And I started this conversation like this, right? I was like, well, first, maybe this veteran teacher is having a hard
Yeah.
time accepting, right? It actually has nothing to do with you, right? And so she used to say, it's not on my side of the street. Like, what can you control? What can you not?
Yeah.
And this has been really game changing for me, both in school and out of school, to be, you know what? Like, let me take a step back. I'm getting really wrapped up into this. It's giving me a lot of anxiety. I'm getting worked up. A lot of headspace is being used on somebody else's issues that has nothing to do with me, you know? And so I'm just going to go in, do my job, and remind myself that that's not on my side of the street, right? It gets to stay over there. It doesn't come over onto my sidewalk. it's not about me. And I think keep repeating that stuff is a nice reminder, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really good to kind of keep that in mind because just having a universal approach to dealing with that and a consistent way to sort of organize your thoughts around that can be incredibly helpful. Because I was thinking about all the other situations that you may face, because there are a lot of teachers out there that, you know, I don't want to say they like drama, but like, they there will be issues that come up, and like they
Hmm.
may be just burnt out, they may be unprofessional, they may be just overwhelmingly negative. And I think we all know a handful of teachers like that. Or you may have a personality conflict, maybe not with as much drama as going on here, but maybe somebody you just don't get along with, or somebody you don't respect how they teach, and like those are not your problems. And I
Hmm.
think that's a good idea to, like you said, that can stay on the other side of the street. So I think
Yeah.
that's good. Um, all right, I would like to move on to our next question. This is from Luis Cabrera in Texas, and Luis says, our principal just volunteered, quote unquote, me to design a hallway display with rotating student work plus hand painted signage for the fall festival. No budget, no time in the day to do it, and a deadline not too far away. What's a professional way to push back or negotiate time, pay, and materials so this doesn't swallow my actual teaching? Oh, this is good. This is something that we have all faced. So, Jen,
And time again. Yeah. I mean, so much so. It's a good thing that this is something that Tim and Amanda just talked about on the mailbag, talking about
yes, I was gonna
saying
say.
no.
Yep, 2 weeks
Right.
ago we had a long conversation about saying no. So,
Yeah. Make
uh,
sure that you go and listen to that because that is, I mean, that's like super comprehensive on ways to say no, first of all.
yes,
Right.
it's good. See, we have so many good examples of conflict resolution and how to say no. And
Mhm.
Luis brings this up, and it's not always a hallway display. It's not always signs for whatever's happening coming up next. But like, I know you and I have both been asked to do a lot with theater stuff. I know you have a whole history in theater. So
Mhm.
I'm sure everybody brings that up to you, but like teachers get asked to do bulletin boards and displays and things with the community and like painting murals. Like that's a beautiful thing to do if you want to do it, but like it's a big pain if that's not something that you're wanting to do yourself. And so let's talk about, how do we say no? How do we handle that? And I would say, again, you need those boundaries. Like, I don't want to be at school till 7 p.m. every night painting these signs or doing whatever. And so you need to figure out how to say no to those things. And I think Luis framed it well, actually. Like, how do I negotiate time, pay, and materials? Like, that's
Yeah.
exactly what you need to do. I think you need to frame it for your administrator, because they're probably not thinking about their thoughts probably go, we need something that looks cool. The art teacher can do it, and they didn't spend any more time on that. And so I think you can frame that question in terms of, the contract hours or the cost of supplies, or just the idea of the opportunity cost, where if I do this, I can't do something else. And so you can ask them that, and just say, hey, I only have so many hours in the day. What do you want me to give up? What do you want me to not do if I'm going to do this display instead? Or I don't have the materials to do this. Where can I get these supplies? Where can I get money for these supplies? And things like that are really good. And honestly, even just being in your first year is a great reason to say no. Like, hey, I really need to focus on my students and my curriculum. I don't have time for these extras. Sorry, I can't do it. So, I don't know, Jen, like, what is your advice? Like, how would you say no to these things if you don't want to do them?
Well, I mean, I've personally gotten to the point in my career where I say no to most
I was
things.
gonna say, you just say no to all of it.
Yes, I'm like, nope, nope. Okay, so I joke about that, but it's true. Like I've set boundaries, and then you know what? I'm like a bit of a sucker or softie, I guess I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I keep like adding more stuff back onto my plate. It really is a slippery slope with all of this stuff. So you want to set those boundaries because you don't want to set a precedence too of like, oh, okay, I can just do whatever anybody asks me. I'm just like this
Yeah.
Mary Poppins bag that I can pull things out of and, make it happen. So I kind of go by like, okay, if it doesn't fill my personal bucket, or even if it does, and I don't have like time for it, I have to be like compensated financially, right? Like who doesn't want things for free? And
Yeah.
especially magically made, right? So sometimes, like you said, putting an amount like, oh, if you buy supplies or whatever, or just even saying, here's how much supplies would cost. This is how much my labor costs, and then people go, oh my gosh, really? Well, I can't do that. And then you're like, well, great. Decision made for me.
Say
I do
problem
not feel
solved.
guilty. Yes, I don't feel guilty at all, because I'm not the one saying yes or no. They are the ones saying yes or no at that point, No.
I think that's an important point to make. There are things that you want to do, and we're not saying that you have to say no to everything. If it sounds like fun and you have the time and they're going to pay you, yeah, go for it. Definitely. But just be conscious of, your own time, your own sanity, for lack of a better term. And just making sure that you're not being taken advantage of. Make sure that you are standing up for yourself and I don't know, just sharing the fact and being conscious of the fact that you can't do everything all at once. Next question is from Maya Chen, and Maya's in Oregon. Maya said, I teach 6th through 8th grade, and a parent emailed a rant about how my behavior expectations are unfair. Their child obviously didn't do anything wrong, and by the way, their child's grade should be an A because how do you even judge creativity?
Yeah, how do you?
Oh,
Should they
I
listen to my podcast?
yes, it
So
spot of the
sorry.
that podcast.
Yeah.
Uh, Maya said, I have decent classroom management. I use clear rubrics for process and expectations, but they're accusing me of quote unquote killing the joy. How do I
Mm.
respond in a way that's kind, firm, and in line with my grading policy? And
Okay.
I'm going to give you this one first.
So first I'm laughing to myself because you're like reading these questions off and I'm like, this is not just difficult scenarios. This is like people behaving badly.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, you all know how I feel, or you will know because you'll go investigate my podcast episodes now about grading and rubrics. So there's that. I'm just gonna put that on the table. But I was just gonna say, like, literally, haters are gonna hate. Like, you
Yeah.
cannot control how
Yeah.
people complain, how they don't understand. I mean, you could educate people, like that's one way to do it, but like. Sometimes people are just not convincible. They're just irritated and they want to complain and
Yes.
gripe about something, right?
Yep.
Okay, so
Again, on that side of the street, there's issues.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yes, that's okay. But you still have to address this parent, right, in some way. So I would call them. I would pick up the phone, to be honest with you. Or I'd request to meet in person, like a short meeting. Like, hey, can you stop by
Yeah.
after school? Or is there a good time I can give you a call so we can discuss this further? Like I would shoot that kind of email because I feel like it's so easy to sling hateful words or like mean things over email, right? I would ask the parent to explain to you what their child told them at home and kind of like what the situation was, like what happened, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Can I give you an idea that combines both
yes.
of those things? I actually learned this from my wife, who's a social studies teacher, middle school. She has the kids call home themselves and explain what the problem is or explain what's going on. And so she will have the kid go to the phone with them, call their parents, and then she is right there. The kid explains what's happening, and then she takes over the phone call. And I stole that idea from her. It's very effective because it really puts kids on the spot about telling the truth, and then gets you connected to the parent immediately.
So that's like if something happens in your class and you want the kid to call home and be like, hey, I was not doing, I was breaking the ruler in half, right?
Yes,
That's
yes,
like that kind of thing, right?
exactly.
Yeah. That's
Um,
such a great tip. I like
yeah,
that.
it's pretty effective. I use that a lot. So anyway, I completely interrupted you though. So what?
No, no, I love that. Okay, so but like I guess I'm thinking on the flip side more, or maybe that's why I was answering it that way, is like maybe the kid maybe the kid was fine in class and it's just like, the parent saying something, right? Or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so as a parent myself, of course, we well really want to believe that our kids can do no wrong. They're
Of
perfect little
course.
angels,
Of
but
course.
let's be honest here, kids are kids and they are known to, like, shall we say, stretch the truth a little bit.
Yes.
Um, so, I mean, sometimes we have to really educate our families, right? And administration and other teachers on what we do. And when everyone says, like, how can you ever grade art? I just say, well, actually, you can. And like, I think people say that, like, oh, how can you grade art? It's so subjective, creativity, ha ha ha. And they expect you to be like, ha ha ha, you're right. But I'm like, actually, you can.
Yeah.
We have clear standards. We, grade and assess based on techniques and concepts and skills that students are expected to be able to demonstrate, just like in math or science, right?
Yep.
And then, as she mentioned, like I have these clear rubrics, right, in her question or whatever. So you just be like, you could see it right on this rubric. I'd be happy to take a photo of it and send it with you if you have not seen it yet. And I can explain to you in the student, like what this looks like. I reinforce these expectations daily in my classroom. You can see that posted in my Google Classroom on my daily agenda. You know what I mean? Like you can just give these evidence of without being rude back, right? Like you can just
Yeah.
be like, hey, this is an opportunity. I'm going to use this as an opportunity.
I think that's a good way to look at that is just as an opportunity. And I think it's important to, whatever parents are upset about and however they contact you, just be professional in your
Yeah.
responses. Don't get defensive and be like, but I do it this way, because just share your systems. This is what we do for classroom management. This is what we do for our rubrics. And like you said, just kind of educate them. And I think that's a really good way to go about it and just stay professional that whole time. And if it is something about behavior, like offer specifics for improvement, how that kid's behavior can improve, how it can change, what you're looking for, and to say he did X, Y, and Z. Instead, I would like to see him do these three things.
Hmm.
We work on that. Can you talk to him about this and see if we can get them to do these things? And just any support from home. It may or may not come, but the support is worth asking for.
Yeah, I like the concrete examples, like this is what I'm seeing and this is what they can do,
Yep.
I also think just sometimes just saying these things, people may not even respond to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just responding to them and being like, these are the things. And then sometimes that happens and it just squashes it completely and nobody even responds again. They just want to complain. I will add, because I always like to just say, hey, I'm on your side. So if any email ever sounds like threatening in any way, you need to talk to your admin immediately.
Yes.
There's so much out there, and there's all these, FOIA requests and things like that. Emails and stuff that go back and forth can be, you know, taken and used, right?
Yeah.
So I would say if anything at all feels not right, then you should contact somebody,
Yeah.
Sometimes those people, like, they know the family, right? And they already have insight and they might deal with it for you, or other times it's just really good to record that so it doesn't keep escalating, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's super easy to just, copy your administrator on the response and then just go talk to them face to face and just say,
Mhm.
real quick, I just want to make you aware of this situation. Copy them, I copied you on the email and just letting you know what's going on. And, if you, say back to the parent, I would love to have you come to a meeting with myself, the principal, and you and your student. That's a good way to kind of loop them in and figure out everything that is going on. Like you said, just kind of cover your bases as much as you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then I was also thinking about similar situations that could be like this, and honestly, it could literally be anything. Parents will complain about anything. It might be behavior, it might be grading, it might be how you address the class, it might be the shirt you wore. Who knows? But as long as you remain professional with all of your responses, I think you can avoid most problems. Okay, our next question. This is from Deshaun Porter in Georgia. And Deshaun says, I just moved into my classroom and I'm overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that's in the supply closet. And I don't even know what's good. There's piles and piles of supplies from like 1972, but I can't even find a working glue stick. My budget is, I think, $400 for the whole year. What do I even do?
Oh, Deshaun, I think we're living parallel lives. I feel like this is like verbatim out of my mouth. Okay, this just goes to show you like how universal all of these issues are for years and years and years. Okay, also, have you seen our art room makeover that we did?
Yes, the YouTube scene. That's good stuff.
I mean, if you want to see a supply closet stuff from 1972, you have to go in and check that out. It's so good. Okay. All right. So speaking of that, okay. So I would say, first of all, please feel free to throw things away. And I'm
Yes.
going to say that cautiously because Tim, I'm pretty sure in that art room makeover, there's literally a clip of me saying, "Hey, this could be used for X, Y, and Z. Like, don't throw
Uh,
this out."
I thought we were gonna have to have an intervention with you, then, and then just be like, "Hey."
And I take it on the plane home with me. What is this? So bad. I'm feeling very embarrassed right now. You should see my face. It's like beet red. Okay. Okay. Free, judgment free zone, right? This is where we're at.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna say this, okay. I'm gonna mend my feel free to throw it out kind of statement and say maybe sit on it for like a year. Okay. And I could say this cautiously depending on your situation. So, whatever. But sometimes you find things that you don't know what they're used for, and then you're like, well, I don't need this. I'm just gonna purge and throw everything away.
Yeah.
And the next year, you're teaching a different class or you're trying a different project, and you're like, wait, I swear I had like 50 of those bamboo sumi ink brushes somewhere. That's what that was for. I had no idea.
Yeah,
So,
those revelations come a little bit too late, but to be honest, like it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you to go ahead and throw things out.
oh, Tim.
You will find some different brushes that you need for that. You will adapt. You're creative. You can problem solve. Just get rid of it. Yeah, don't be afraid to purge stuff. And it might be worthwhile to keep some things if you don't know what they are. But to be honest, if you don't think you're going to use it, get rid of it. And I would say just slowly tackle the mess. Like I feel like almost every art teacher has a story like this. Very few teachers have walked into a clean room with well organized supplies. So
Oh my God.
you did count yourself as lucky. But, it's not anything that you have to do immediately. You're going to be in the room for a while, and you don't have
Yeah.
to get it perfect on your first day or even your first year.
Was just gonna say, like, no, totally. Like, it's very overwhelming. So do the flip side of this, right? Like, maybe you want to purge, but you're like, I don't even know where to start. This is like so overwhelming. There's just like you said, I cannot find a glue stick. I think there might be some glue sticks underneath here. Uh, you know, so trying to pull everything out and trying to do that. I remember doing that. That's why I'm laughing
Yeah.
at this. And I think I had $400 to my budget, when I was teaching, and years ago. And I remember opening this closet, which was so much stuff. I don't even know where to start. And I thought that I had to pull everything out before the first day of school, and like organize it
Yeah.
and figure out what I had so that I knew, what I had to purchase with, or I knew what I had to do curriculum wise. And sometimes it's like, that's just too much when you're just trying to figure everything else out, right? Especially as a new teacher, you're like, I don't even know where to start with anything, to be honest with you. So my advice is always like slow your roll. You don't have to do everything on day one, even though it feels like that. You absolutely do not. And you don't have to have it done by the next year, right? I'm still going through things, right? But I would say take a look at your curriculum, figure out where you're kind of like what you're teaching when, plan it out based on really minimal supplies to begin with, so you can start to feel more comfortable with what is actually accessible, and then reusing like those some of those supplies in different ways. How can you use cardboard in different ways? How can you use
Yep.
paper in different ways, right? It doesn't all have to be drawing and with a pencil, right? You can use paper in a lot of creative ways. I think we have a ton of resources for that too. And then, as you feel comfortable, and hopefully you can order supplies of this. So I know some schools also have different rules on when they can order supplies and how
Yes.
often and how much at a time.
Yeah, when
But
the fiscal year starts and when the school board approves the budget.
exactly, like July 1st, when nobody's in school, that's when you can start. Like, cool. I don't want to do that over the summer, but um, so I think sometimes it's good to get your foot in the door, plan for minimal supplies, and then go like, okay, wait, I do know I want to teach this lesson. I do know that I can reuse these supplies if I purchase them or tools or whatever, and then kind of go from there. I also think like adding on every year a few specialty items is kind of a great way to go too, because you don't always have to have a class set of everything to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
You can be creative on doing like little workshops or, tabletop groups or whatever it is to teach something, and then other kids are doing something else.
Yeah, I would just add you can always ask for donations from
Mhm.
community PTA, PTO. I think that's always a good place to go as well. But I would just reiterate, just start with the basics of like what do you need to teach your curriculum, and of those things that you need, what do you have? And I think that can really help direct your budget and figure out where it needs to go. And again, you can always look for outside help too. Or like, I don't know what I should spend my budget on. These are the things I
Mhm.
have. What would you suggest? And just get a discussion started and see what other people might want to do. And that may give you some insight as far as what you want to do with that budget. Okay,
Yeah.
our final question. This comes from Aaron Vasallo in New Jersey. Aaron says, yesterday a student kicked a chair during cleanup, threw a jar of glaze, and stormed out, leaving me and other students feeling unsafe. Admin took almost 10 minutes to arrive, and now I'm being told to document and move on. How do I even handle this? What do I do with the other kids? How do I handle that particular student when she comes back? And how do I tell my admin that I need more from them?
This is really hard. I think behaviors and not getting support, and like, how do you deal with that? How do you move forward? I mean, just big, right?
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I know we've talked about behavior, like escalating behavior. There's a great episode on that too, like de-escalating behavior, right, with Chris
Yes.
Cusack and you and
Yes.
I. So I'd highly suggest listening to that one too, because that's going to be really good for new teachers and veteran teachers alike. But in that, we talk a lot about kind of stepping back again and trying to figure out what's going on with the kid, right? So Chris Cusack talked a lot about behaviors are a symptom of something else, right?
Mhm.
So how are they communicating through this behavior? So I often think of that, like what's going on with this kid? Are they having a hard time in general? Is something undiagnosed, or maybe there's some diagnosis that hasn't been shared with us, or is it attention seeking behavior? Is it in or out of their control? Like, can you kind of tell what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
Um,
if we're kicking chairs and throwing jars, it's probably out of our control, but you don't know for sure.
you just never know, right? So, first of all, I would definitely document. That would be my first step, right? I would definitely call home. That would be something I would definitely be doing. I'd be looking for a lot of help within the school. Maybe not the admin, but maybe there's a social worker. I get that not also I worked in a school that had a social worker 1 day a week. I get that, but is there anyone that can help you? So I know that not everyone has a resource, and I know that's just really, really hard. Like, what do you do? But honestly, if you don't feel safe, then you need to decide what's best for you. And that means maybe requesting that the student is removed from your classroom. Um, or, maybe that's like a privilege that gets revoked from them until they
Yeah.
can regulate their bodies. Maybe you need to request that another adult is present to support you in the room. Should something happen, so this is a pretty drastic experience, right? Like if some
For sure.
smaller behaviors, yeah, I would say removing the materials. You don't get to work with those until you can show me that you can be respectful of the materials and your classmates, right? Um, I would say that if you are ever in a situation, though, where the student is being disruptive to that extreme and your class feels unsafe, then you need to actually take the class out of the classroom and leave the kid in the classroom. Because you can't, that's like a not winning battle, to try to
Right.
remove a
Yeah,
kid that's
that's a
dysregulated.
battle
Yeah.
you can't win.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the best way to do is take the kid out of or the class out of the classroom, have them go in the hallway, go somewhere else, go to the library, whatever. And then maybe you can call for help during the incident so that the kid can be addressed directly at that time by a team or other person or whatever. After, I will say, after, like, if they're like, okay, document, move on, and the kid's going back to your class, right, the next day, I think it's really important to have boundaries set up, like a list of consequences for that, and taking the kid and telling them and making that very clearly defined before they step foot back in the classroom, right? So you see them, they're in your classroom, say, okay, I'm getting the class started. Can you please come with me? And then you stand outside or whatever, away from other students. So you're never talking and addressing that with that student in front of other students, right? And then saying, yesterday was unacceptable. This is making me feel unsafe. It's making the class unsafe, and you are unsafe, right? It could be unsafe for your body. So here are the steps that we're going to go through in order for you to continue to do this. Should X, Y happen, then one, two happens, right? Like
Yep.
cause and effect, consequences.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's actually really good advice on how to handle that. So let me ask you another thing that Aaron said is how do you address that with the rest of the class? Is that
Yeah.
something you bring up when that student's gone? Is that something that you talk to them about? Is that something you just leave them to wonder about? How would you address that with the rest of the class?
So I think it depends on the situation. So I don't want to say this is a one size fits all, right? But I do think that whether the kid's in the class or not, so let's say this happened, you were not able to remove the student or the class, the rest of the class, right? There was no separation. So this all happened. It's chaos. Kids are leaving the classroom to go to the next class or leave for the school day or whatever it is. The kid is dysregulated, all these things, right? Next day, kids come back, this other kid's with them, right? I think it is okay also to at some point address the whole class and what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior. I guess I'm trying to think of like what would you do with that kid? Maybe they could be out of the classroom talking with an administrator that time. Maybe you ask the administrator, if you're going to put them back in my classroom, maybe not the day after. Like, give us a day. Can they come and sit with you during my class period? I need to address it with my class. And then when you're addressing it with your class, you can say, yesterday's behavior was completely unacceptable. It makes us all feel unsafe, whatever, right? And then you can say, if you ever feel unsafe, here are things that you can do. Because I think the worst feeling is being in a classroom where you feel helpless and don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So equipping students with, this is what I can do to help the situation or to make myself feel safe, I think is important. And also letting them know that that was not okay, right? Like the last thing you want to do is open this door of bad behavior across the board. Now, obviously, this is an extreme case, but yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think that's important. And, you want students to feel safe in your classroom. And so I think addressing it with them is important. I would say one of my jobs as a teacher is to keep you safe and
Yes.
just tell them I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe while we're in here.
Yes.
I think just reassuring them and reiterating that is part of your job will go a long way to making kids feel better about what's happening in your classroom. And then
Yeah.
I would just say, like this is this is a failure on administration's part to take 10
Yes.
to show up to something that dramatic and then document and move on. I'm going to say I'm not surprised to hear that because so many administrators it's just a fact of life that they don't want to deal with these things. And so you do need to document. I don't know that you need to move on. I would say you need to go talk to your admin and say, hey, will handle this to the best of my ability, but I need your help. I need your support.
Hmm.
When you don't show up for 10 minutes, that scares my kids. that scares me. And, I don't know how long it's going to be until we get back to a normal learning situation. Because behaviors are going to happen. You're going to have defiant kids. You're going to have apathetic kids. You're going to have other behavior issues. And I love the idea, like you said, Jen, of having a plan for those things. Know what's going to happen, like how you're going to deal with those. Think about those things in advance so you can address them successfully. But no matter what your plans are, you still need administrative support. And so I would go to them and make that clear that, this is not going to cut it. I need your help. And so I think that's something that you probably want to address, but just make sure that, you're communicating with students, with the kid who is misbehaving, with the admin, with whoever else needs it, and just make sure that you're all on the same page kind of moving forward. And I think that may help prevent behaviors, but definitely will help deal with behaviors when they happen. So I think that's all good. Janet, these were way tougher than I thought. You said difficult scenarios, but these were some really difficult ones. But I'm going to hope two things. I'm going to hope that the situations that people are facing are maybe not quite this extreme or not quite this bad. And I'm also going to hope that the bits of advice that we're sharing will be helpful to whoever's listening, whatever situations they might face. So, Janet, thanks for putting together this episode with me, and thank you for all of your advice and your expertise.
Thank you. Oh, one more. Can I add one more thing?
Yes, please do.
Don't I always one more thing, Tim?
It would not be a Janet Taylor podcast if we didn't have another addendum after I'm trying to say goodbye.
Okay. But I was thinking when you said that, I was thinking you know what? We want you to stay in the field, right? You're a new teacher and these scenarios are severe. Those are pretty drastic things, but things will always pop up. So I just want to, again, reinforce and support you and knowing that it's not always like this everywhere. So if you are in a situation where you're like, this is my first year teaching, is this what teaching is? I did not sign up for this. Just know that that is not necessarily the case. Whatever it is, right? Now, you're always going to get emails from parents, right? But we want you to stay in the field and know that you're supported. So please make sure that you are reaching out to us. You are not alone, and it can feel very lonely. Come join us at the community, talk to us. We are here to support you. So that's all. That's it this time.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Janet.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you to Janet for coming on and sharing that entire discussion with me. I really appreciate all of the experiences that she can share. I really appreciate all of the great advice that she gives, and I love having her as part of this show. Now, I know that being a first-year teacher can feel overwhelming, especially when you're facing some of these scenarios that you may never have imagined. Whether it's a colleague that is making your life a little more difficult, an administrator who's given you extra work without thinking about it, parents who are being parents, let's be honest, or honestly just the challenge of dealing with your budget, dealing with behaviors and all of those things. No matter what situation you're facing, I want to remind you that you're not alone. Every art teacher has been through these moments, and we all kind of know what you're going through. And so it's great to reach out. It's great to hear that other people are going through those things, because it can give you the confidence that you're going to get those through those things as well. And the important thing is to remember that you don't have to solve everything on your own. Setting boundaries, asking for support, keeping your focus on your students, those are the kinds of things that are going to help you get through these situations, that are going to help you move forward. And those tough days are part of the learning process, and they are giving you the opportunities to grow into the teacher you want to be. Jen and I brought that up a lot in the discussion today, a lot in the entire What Do New Teachers Need to Know series. This is not all going to click into place in that first year. It is a process to become a great teacher, and you're going to get there, but it does take a little bit. And the other thing I think you need to remember, that even with the stress, even with the unpredictability, teaching art is still one of the best, one of the most joyful jobs out there. You are creating a space that is meaningful for students. You are giving them a chance to explore their creativity and build their confidence and discover new ways of seeing the world. And being able to have that impact is something that's very, very special. And it shows that you are doing really important work. Art Ed Radio is produced by The Art of Education with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. Thank you, as always, for listening, and we would love for you to share anything that you find helpful with someone else who you think could use it. Whether it's this episode, other podcasts that we talked about, articles, videos, anything else that we may have covered. If you can share that out, okay, we really appreciate you passing it along. Okay, we want to continue to reach and continue to help as many art teachers as possible. We would also appreciate a 5-star rating and a review on whatever platform you use to listen to your podcasts. Thank you again, and we will talk to you next week.